The man with the torn coat. The rain had been falling all morning, soft at first, then turning into a cold, steady drizzle that washed the city in shades of grey. The sidewalks shimmered with reflections of blurred lights, and the wind carried the scent of wet pavement, worn rubber, and the faint sweetness of roasted peanuts from a nearby street cart. In the middle of that chill and noise, a man stood still outside a small, quiet diner nestled between two tall office buildings. He looked out of place. His coat was old and torn at the shoulder. His shoes, mismatched and worn thin, squished slightly with every step. His beard was a few days past clean, and his hair, though neatly tied back, was damp from the rain. He carried no umbrella, no phone, no bag. In one hand, he held a crumpled paper napkin, and in the other, a folded note. Inside the diner, it was warmer, the kind of warm that came not just from heaters, but from the smell of bacon, the sound of clinking dishes, and soft music playing from a dusty radio. The waitress behind the counter noticed him immediately. She'd been working since 5 in the morning, and though the circles under her eyes were darker than the eyeliner she wore, she hadn't lost her kindness. Her name tag read Lisa. She watched the man hesitate at the door. Something about him made her pause. He looked rough, yes, but there was something gentle in his eyes, something that didn't match the rest. People like that didn't usually hang around this part of town. Then he opened the door. The bell above the entrance jingled softly as he stepped in, and the warmth hit him like a wave. Still, he kept his eyes low, almost like he didn't want to be seen. Water dripped from his coat, leaving a trail behind him. He walked to the farthest booth, the one by the window, and sat down without a word. Lisa wiped her hands on her apron and walked over. She gave him a soft smile, the kind that made people feel less invisible. "Good morning," she said gently, handing him a menu. "Coffee?" He looked up, and for a second, Lisa felt something strange. Those eyes. They were tired, yes, but wise, deep, almost familiar. But she pushed the thought away. She couldn't place him, and besides, she had other customers to attend to. "Coffee would be great," he said, voice soft. "Just a cup, black." She nodded and turned, but not before catching the way his hand trembled slightly as he reached for the menu. When she returned with the coffee, he was still looking at the same page. "You thinking about something to eat?" she asked. He hesitated, then looked up. I was wondering," he said slowly, "if it's okay to just sit here for a while. I won't be long." Lisa studied him again. His face was kind, but there was a sadness under his smile. She could tell he hadn't eaten properly in a while. His cheekbones were sharp, and his fingers thin. "You can sit as long as you want," she said, placing the cup gently in front of him. "No rush." He nodded. "Thank you. You're very kind." As she walked away, she couldn't help but glance back at him. Most people would have asked him to leave. Some wouldn't have let him in at all. But something in her heart told her this man needed a little more time and maybe a little more kindness. An hour passed. Customers came and went. Lisa refilled his coffee without asking, and each time he thanked her like it truly meant something. He didn't speak much, just stared out the window, sipping slowly, watching the city move around him. Every now and then he would glance at the napkin he brought in with him, like it held a secret he wasn't ready to share. Finally, he looked up again as Lisa passed by. "Do you believe people can be good?" he asked, "even when no one's watching?" The question caught her off guard. She paused, thinking. "I think real kindness shows up when there's no reward," she said quietly. "And the world's full of people doing the right thing when no one sees." He smiled, a soft, grateful smile. "That's a beautiful answer," she smiled back. "Do you need something to eat?" "On the house. I can ask the cook." He hesitated, as if refusing would be rude, but accepting would be shameful. Just toast, if that's okay. I'll make it myself, she said gently. 10 minutes later, she placed a plate of warm toast and butter in front of him. No charge. She didn't ask questions. She didn't judge. She just offered. He ate slowly, like every bite mattered. When he finished, he folded the napkin again, placed it on the table with a few coins, far less than the meal had cost, and stood. "Thank you, Lisa," he said softly. "I won't forget this." And then he left, into the rain. What she didn't know, what no one in the diner knew, was that man was Keanu Reeves. And this wasn't just a chance visit. This was a test, because Keanu had been filming nearby. And after hearing stories of kindness and cruelty in the city's service industry, he decided to do something different. He wanted to meet real people, people who treated others with dignity, even when there was nothing to gain. And Lisa, she just passed a test she didn't even know she was taking. But that was only the beginning, because the next day, everything would change. The following morning, Lisa arrived at the diner to find a black car parked outside. 2 men in suits waited by the door. One held a sealed envelope. The other, a camera. And when they asked, "Are you Lisa?" she had no idea the answer would change her life forever. The envelope and the Lisa stood at the entrance of the diner, frozen. The rain had stopped, but a new kind of tension filled the air, thick, unspoken, and unfamiliar. The 2 men outside didn't look like they were from around here. They wore matching dark suits, clean and pressed, and held themselves like people used to being in control of a room. One had a quiet kind of authority in his eyes, the other a strange mixture of curiosity and caution. The man on the left stepped forward, holding out a white envelope sealed with red wax. Lisa glanced at the envelope, then back at their faces, her heart beginning to race. She wiped her hands nervously on her apron. "Are you Lisa?" the taller one asked again, his voice low but clear. "Yeah," she said slowly. "I'm Lisa. Is something wrong?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he offered the envelope more insistently. "This is for you. You're not in trouble. Just read it when you're alone." The other man opened the door for her without a word. They didn't step inside. They didn't explain. They simply nodded, turned, and got back into the car. Lisa stood there staring at the envelope in her hands like it was a bomb set to go off. Her co-worker Jenny leaned around from behind the counter and called out, "What was that about?" Lisa didn't answer. She slipped the envelope into her apron and walked straight to the back room. Her hands trembled as she peeled away the wax and unfolded the letter inside. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. Neat, clean, and oddly familiar. "Dear Lisa, you may remember me from yesterday. I was the man who came in with the torn coat and the quiet eyes. You were kind to me. More kind than most would be. You didn't ask questions. You didn't make me feel small. What you didn't know was that I wasn't really down on my luck. I was testing something, searching for someone, and I found her. Tonight, I want to meet you. Not as a stranger, but as myself. Please come to the address at the bottom of this letter. Bring nothing but yourself. It's safe. It's important, Keanu." Lisa blinked, then blinked again. Her knees almost buckled as she read the signature. She laughed once, a sharp, nervous sound that didn't feel real. It had to be a joke. Some weird prank. A hidden camera thing, maybe. She read it again, just to be sure. The words didn't change. Her heart thudded like a drum against her ribs. Keanu. The Keanu. She remembered his eyes from yesterday now. That same softness, the control in his voice, the quiet confidence even under all that rain and disguise. How did she not see it before? The rest of the day passed in a haze. Customers came and went. Plates were cleaned. Coffee was poured. But Lisa's mind was elsewhere, replaying that morning over and over. By the time her shift ended, her hands were sore and her legs ached, but her nerves were sharper than ever. Her fingers clutched the envelope as if it held the last real thing in the world. She changed into fresh clothes, simple and clean. Nothing fancy. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew she couldn't show up in a uniform that smelled of syrup and fryer oil. She took the subway, got off 2 stops early, and walked the last blocks to clear her head. The address led her to a quiet street in a nicer part of the city. Not loud and flashy, but rich in a quiet way. The building in front of her was tall and modern, glass and steel and clean lines. A doorman stood out front, already aware of who she was. He opened the door without asking her name. "He's waiting." "Upstairs," the man said with a respectful nod. Lisa stepped inside. The elevator was silent except for the soft hum of classical music. Her reflection stared back at her from the mirrored walls. Her lips were dry, and she couldn't stop fiddling with the sleeves of her cardigan. She didn't feel like someone who belonged here. She didn't feel like someone who belonged anywhere tonight. The elevator door slid open to a private floor. The suite was warm and inviting, nothing like she expected. Soft lighting, art on the walls, books stacked in corners, and standing by the window, hands behind his back, was the man she'd served toast and coffee to just the day before. He turned slowly. No torn coat, no wet hair, no mismatched shoes, just Keanu Reeves. Calm, composed, sincere. Lisa didn't know what to say. Every word died in her throat. "Thank you for coming," he said gently. She stepped forward, still unsure if she was dreaming. "Why, me?" she finally asked, her voice breaking the silence. Keanu smiled, small and real. "Because kindness is rare when there's nothing to gain. And yesterday you reminded me what it looks like." She shook her head slowly. "I didn't do anything special." "Exactly," he said. "And that's why it mattered." He motioned for her to sit. They talked for hours. About life, about people, about choices. Keanu listened as much as he spoke. And Lisa found herself opening up in ways she hadn't in years. She told him about her mother's illness, about working double shifts to keep up with bills, about the days she wanted to give up but didn't. And he listened. Not like a celebrity, but like a person, like someone who knew what pain looked like. Then came the twist. As she stood to leave, he handed her a second envelope. "Don't open it until you're home," he said. She nodded, heart pounding again, and thanked him. But she had no idea what was inside, because when she opened it later that night, sitting on the edge of her worn couch with tears in her eyes, she didn't find words. She found a check. A check for $25,000. A note was attached. "For your kindness. For your honesty. For not looking away when someone needed to be seen. Use it however you need to. And never forget that. Goodness matters, even when no one sees it. Yours in respect, Keanu." Lisa's hands trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. She had passed a test. But what she didn't know yet was that her story had only just begun, because the world was about to hear what she did. And not everyone would believe it. The next morning, Lisa arrived at the diner as usual, but this time, news vans were already parked outside. Strangers with cameras shouted her name. Flashes went off. Reporters called her a liar, a hero, a fake. And in the center of the chaos, her manager held a pink slip in one hand. "Lisa," he said grimly, "we need to talk." Truth on trial. The flashes from the cameras burned Lisa's eyes before she even stepped fully onto the sidewalk. Voices rose like a wave crashing against her ears. Reporters shouting over each other. Strangers holding up phones, all of them, hungry for a glimpse of the woman who, overnight, had become a question mark wrapped in a headline. She stood still for a moment, frozen between the door she had just closed behind her and the ocean of chaos in front. Her pulse pounded in her throat. It was too much, too fast. Only yesterday she was pouring coffee in silence. Now, the world seemed to be watching her breathe. A man with a news station badge leaned close, microphone aimed at her face. Lisa, did you really serve Keanu Reeves without recognizing him? Are you working with him? Is this a publicity stunt? She blinked, unable to find words, then stepped back, mumbling, I just want to go to work. But the moment she reached the diner's door, it opened, and her manager, Greg, stepped out with an expression that wasn't angry but something worse, tired, cautious. He looked past her at the crowd, then back at Lisa with a tight mouth. Come, inside, he said quietly. She followed him in. The diner, normally a calm place with smells of breakfast and chatter of early morning regulars, now felt hollow. Customers had cleared out. A sign on the window said closed for maintenance. Greg motioned for her to sit at the counter. He didn't. He stayed standing and pulled a pink slip from his pocket. He set it down carefully, like he was placing a weight between them. Lisa, he began, choosing each word carefully. I need you to understand. This isn't personal. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She felt a strange buzzing in her chest, like the world was shaking, but only for her. What do you mean? The owners saw the media coverage, he said, eyes not quite meeting hers. They're worried about attention, about backlash. They think, maybe you set this up. Maybe it's all for show. Wait, she said, a sharp edge in her voice. They think what? That I pretended to be kind to a homeless man, hoping he'd turn out to be a movie star? Greg sighed. I told them, you wouldn't do that. I believe you, but they don't want the risk. The diner's on thin margins. We can't afford controversy. She stared at the pink slip. Her throat tightened. Yesterday, she had received a gift she never expected. Now she was losing the one stable thing in her life. Not because of a mistake, but because she had done the right thing. So, I'm being punished, she whispered, for being decent. Greg didn't answer. The silence told her everything. She left without picking up the slip. Her hands shook as she walked past the cameras again. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She simply walked. Her mind was screaming, but the city didn't care. By the time she reached her small apartment, her phone had dozens of missed calls. Old friends, reporters, even people from school she hadn't heard from in years. Her name was trending online. Videos of her serving Keanu had somehow surfaced. Grainy security footage showed her kindness in motion. But the internet wasn't kind back. Some called her an angel. Others said she was an actress. Many just wanted a piece of her story. But Lisa wasn't a story. She was a person who had shown compassion and had been caught in the whirlwind that followed. For hours, she sat alone on her couch, the check from Keanu still untouched on her table. Part of her wanted to rip it up, not because it wasn't appreciated, but because of what it had brought. She felt like the money had pulled her into someone else's life, someone she wasn't prepared to be. As the sky outside turned from blue to dusk, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a new number. No name. Just a message. They fired you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. Meet me. Attached was a location. Lisa hesitated. Everything inside her told her to be cautious, to step away from the storm before it swallowed her whole. But the memory of Keanu's calm voice, his sincerity, pushed her to reply. She didn't respond. She just went. The meeting point was a quiet, rooftop garden above a boutique hotel, hidden from the noise, as if the world below didn't exist. Keanu stood near the edge, dressed plainly, watching the city lights blink on one by one. When he turned, his face was heavy with apology. You lost your job, he said softly. Not as a question, but as something he already knew. They said I caused too much attention, Lisa replied, her voice steady but hollow. He nodded slowly. I should have seen this coming. I thought, maybe a good deed would stay simple, but I forget how loud the world is now. She looked at him, really looked. trying to see past the celebrity. What she saw was guilt, and something deeper. Pain, maybe. "You didn't mean for this," she said, almost to herself. "No," he said. "I just wanted to thank someone who reminded me that decency still exists. But now you're paying a price you shouldn't." Lisa crossed her arms. "Then what now? Do I disappear? Do I go quiet so the world forgets?" Keanu didn't answer right away. He walked to a bench and sat down. Then he motioned for her to join. "No," he said finally. "You speak. We tell. Your side. The truth. And I help." She tilted her head. "Help how?" "By making sure they can't ignore it." He pulled out his phone. Within seconds, he had started recording a video, just him, on that rooftop, city lights, behind him. "Hi," he said into the lens. "This is Keanu. Yesterday, I met someone extraordinary. Not because she recognized me, but because she didn't. She saw a man in need and treated him with dignity. Her name is Lisa. She's a waitress. Or she was." He looked directly into the camera. "She lost her job because of what she did. Because she chose kindness. And that's not the world I want to live in. So today, I'm telling you, if you believe kindness should be rewarded, not punished, help me support Lisa. Listen to her story. And maybe, just maybe, we can remind people what truly matters." He ended the video and looked at her. "You okay with this?" Lisa swallowed hard. Her heart thumped louder than ever. She didn't want fame. She didn't want drama. But she wanted her dignity back. She nodded. "Let's do it." Within 12 hours, the video reached over 6 million views, and by the end of the day, a famous talk show host had called Lisa's phone directly with an invitation that would change everything. But not everyone watching believed her story. And someone unexpected was already planning to expose a secret from Lisa's past. Whispers from the past, the city always moved fast, but in the days that followed Keanu's video, it seemed to spin. Lisa's face was suddenly everywhere, on social media, in articles, on television screens, in places she never imagined. Her name, once just something printed on a diner name tag, now echoed across comment sections and news reports. People called her brave, honest, a symbol of kindness in a tired world. But fame, even unasked for, came with shadows. Beneath the surface of all the praise, there were murmurs, doubts that crawled through corners of the internet like mold in a forgotten basement. People who didn't know her began telling versions of her story she didn't recognize. Strangers posted photos from her past, digging through old profiles and twisted truths. They searched for flaws like bloodhounds on a scent, eager to tear down what had been lifted up. Lisa sat in her tiny apartment, phone buzzing nonstop on the counter as her hands gripped a mug of cold coffee. The warmth had gone hours ago. She hadn't been able to sleep. Her eyes were raw from reading, her heart heavy from doubt. Then the message came. It wasn't loud or public. It wasn't from a troll or a reporter. It came from someone she once knew, years ago, in another life. The name on the screen stopped her heart. Brandon, not her ex, not a boyfriend. Worse. Back in her early 20s, Lisa had gotten caught up in the wrong crowd. Her mother's hospital bills had piled up fast, and desperation had crept into her bones. Brandon had offered a way out. Quick cash, small lies, nothing serious, he said. She'd helped him pull off a scam once, just once. A fake return at a department store. She hadn't even kept most of the money, but it had been enough to leave a mark on her conscience. She thought it was buried, forgotten, but now he had reappeared, and his message was short and cruel. You're famous now. Wonder how the world would feel if they knew about you and me. Let's talk, before I do. Her stomach turned. She set the phone down as if it had burned her fingers. Outside, the city, lights flickered like stars trying to breathe. Inside, Lisa felt like the air had been sucked from her lungs. She couldn't lose everything again. Not like this. Not after finally feeling like she mattered. But she couldn't lie either. And so, she did the only thing that made sense. She called Keanu. He answered on the first ring, his voice calm as always. She told him everything. The mistake. The past. The message. There was no drama in his reply, no judgment, no shock, just quiet understanding. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "This doesn't change what you did. Who you are now is what matters." "But the world won't see it that way," she said. "They'll say I was pretending to be kind, that I was just acting." Keanu was silent for a moment, then said something she didn't expect. "Then we tell them the truth. All of it." "What do you mean?" "Come with me," he said. "Tomorrow. We're going on the talk show, together. And you're going to tell your whole story." Lisa's chest tightened. "I can't. I'll be torn apart." "No," he said gently. "You'll be free." The next morning felt like walking into a dream. The studio was brighter than she imagined, the cameras colder, the audience bigger. Her palms were sweating. Her voice trembled when she spoke. But then Keanu took her hand, and she began to tell it. Not the story people wanted, but the truth. She spoke about her mother's illness, about the helplessness, the fear, the one-time mistake, and the years of guilt that followed. She talked about working at the diner, about choosing kindness, not because she wanted something, but because she knew what it was like to need it and not receive it. The room was silent. Then came the twist. The host, known for fiery interviews and pulling up receipts live on air, leaned forward with narrowed eyes. "So Lisa," he said, "do you admit to participating in a fraudulent act in your past?" Lisa didn't flinch. "Yes, I did. I regret it. And I've spent every day since trying to live in a way that my mother would be proud of. Not perfect, just better." The host nodded, surprised by the lack of denial. And then Keanu spoke. "I didn't choose Lisa for this story because she was flawless," he said. "I chose her because she was real, because she was kind to a man who offered her nothing, not knowing he could give her the world." The audience didn't clap at first, but then they did, slowly, then louder. When they left the studio, Lisa felt like her chest could finally rise and fall without pain. The weight was gone, but that feeling didn't last long, because just a few blocks away, someone was waiting in the shadows of a car parked along the sidewalk, his arms crossed, his eyes cold. Brandon. He didn't smile. He didn't wave. He simply watched, and Lisa knew he wasn't done. That night, a mysterious video clip surfaced online. It showed Lisa at the department store all those years ago. Grainy footage, poor quality, but enough to raise questions, and enough to destroy her if people chose to believe the worst. The storm they didn't see coming, the video spread like wildfire, igniting online debates and reopening wounds Lisa had only just begun to heal. It was late evening when she first saw it, posted anonymously on a forum already known for tearing down public figures. Someone had uploaded shaky security footage from years ago. A dim department store, Lisa's younger self, nervous, glancing around. The exchange at the counter, the return, the smirk on Brandon's face behind her. No sound, just grainy visuals. But it didn't matter. The damage had been done. The internet didn't ask for full context. It rarely does. Within hours, hashtags began trending. Faker waitress. Keanu got played. Scammer kindness. Some people still defended her, claiming redemption was real, that one mistake didn't erase who she'd become, but many others were. Louder, crueler, screens filled with doubts, judgment, and accusations. Her inbox flooded with threats. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. She unplugged it eventually. But silence wasn't peace anymore. It was just another kind of fear. Keanu called twice that night, She didn't pick up the first time. The second time, she answered with a cracked voice, barely above a whisper. "It's all falling apart," she said. "I tried to do the right thing, but I can't change the past. They're going to destroy me." His reply was steady, warm. "You're not alone in this, and you haven't done anything that can't be faced." She shook her head, even though he couldn't see her. "But I lied once, and now no one will ever trust anything I say again." "You told the truth," he said gently. "They just don't want to hear it. Not yet. But we're not finished." She was quiet, exhausted, scared. He continued. "We're going to hold a press conference, not just a statement, not a post, something real, in person, face to face with the world. If they want the whole story, they'll get it." The thought terrified her. Standing in front of flashing cameras again. This time, not as a symbol of kindness, but as someone questioned, accused, picked apart. But something deep in her chest, maybe pride, maybe pain, told her to stop running. She'd already lost her job, nearly lost her peace. She wouldn't lose her voice too. The next morning, a crowd gathered outside a small auditorium in the city. Journalists, influencers, fans, skeptics. They came for drama. They came for truth. Keanu and Lisa stood backstage, waiting. She wore no makeup, no glamorous outfit, just herself, plain, unfiltered, and brave. When she walked out, the flashes started again, but this time she didn't flinch. Keanu stood beside her, silent for now. She stepped up to the mic, cleared her throat. "You've all seen the video," she began. "Yes, it's me. It was a mistake, one that happened years ago in a time when my world was falling apart. My mother was dying. I was drowning in medical bills, and I made a terrible choice. I've lived with that shame every day since." The room stayed quiet. The cameras didn't blink. But what I did after, that matters too. I didn't lie to Keanu. I didn't fake my kindness. I didn't know who he was when I gave him that. Toast and coffee. I just saw a man who looked cold and tired and kind, and I helped because it was the right thing to do. She paused. Her voice shook slightly. "I never wanted this attention. I didn't ask for it. But I also won't run from it." Keanu stepped forward then. His presence alone silenced murmurs. "I've made mistakes too," he said. "Everyone has, but what defines us isn't our worst day. It's what we do after. Lisa showed me kindness when there was no camera, no reward, no audience, and that means more to me than 100 perfect reputations." Then came the twist, unexpected, unplanned. A woman from the audience stood up, older, gray streaks in her hair, tears in her eyes. "Lisa," she said softly. Lisa turned, confused. "You probably don't remember me," the woman continued. "But 5 years ago you found me crying behind the diner. My son had passed the night before. You sat with me for an hour. You gave me free coffee, told me I wasn't alone. I never forgot that." Murmurs filled the room. Then another person stood. "I was homeless," a man said. "She gave me a sandwich every morning for a week. Said the owner would throw it out anyway, but I knew it came from her tips." And another, people from Lisa's past, people she didn't even remember, stood to tell their stories. One by one, they painted a picture of a woman who had spent years choosing compassion, not for attention, not for glory, just because it was who she was. Tears ran silently down Lisa's cheeks. In that moment, the room shifted. No longer about a scandal, no longer about a mistake, but about the power of one small act of kindness, multiplied across time. The cameras didn't just record a statement. They captured a transformation. A storm had tried to swallow her, but Lisa had stood in the center of it and refused to fall. As the crowd applauded and the internet began to soften, Lisa finally walked out of the building with her head high, but just as she stepped onto the sidewalk, a sleek black car pulled up beside her. A tinted window rolled down slowly. Inside sat a woman in a suit, sharp eyes, calm voice. "Miss Lisa," she said, "I represent someone who's been watching everything unfold. He believes you're exactly the kind of person he's looking for." Lisa blinked. "Looking for what?" The woman smiled. "A second chance, and a bigger stage." The stage built by kindness. The air outside the auditorium was thick with that strange silence that comes only after something big has happened, when the shouting ends and the world waits to see what it all means. Lisa stood frozen, staring into the black car beside her. Inside, the woman's eyes held no judgment, only precision. She looked like someone who had seen many storms and knew how to walk through them without getting wet. "What does that mean?" Lisa asked again, her voice soft but steady. "A bigger stage?" The woman reached into a leather folder and pulled out a simple card. White, elegant, no logo, only a name printed in silver letters. Nathan Everett, director, The Bridge. Foundation. Lisa had heard of it in passing. The Bridge Foundation was one of those rare organizations known for doing real work, quietly funding education for underprivileged kids, helping families with medical debt, and lifting entire communities, without putting their name on every billboard. They didn't chase the spotlight, they just made sure it found the right people. "Mr. Everett saw your story," the woman said. "He believes people like you should have the power to do more than survive. You've lived the life, Lisa. Now, he wants to help you change others." Lisa took the card with trembling fingers. The car drove off. No pressure, no signatures, just an invitation. She stood alone on that sidewalk, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small. 3 months passed, and in those months, Lisa's world reshaped itself completely. She met Nathan Everett in a quiet office overlooking the harbor. He wasn't what she expected. Not a millionaire in a flashy suit, but a soft-spoken man with a gentle face and questions that made her think deeper than she ever had. He didn't want her to be the face of anything. He wanted her heart. "You've already shown what one act of kindness can do," he told her. "Imagine what 100 could do with the right tools." With their support, Lisa launched a program called Table for One, aimed at helping struggling single workers, waitresses, janitors, clerks, who kept the world running quietly and were often ignored. Not a charity, a platform. It offered emergency relief, job training, mental health care, and something more powerful, dignity. Her story wasn't used as a sob story. It was used as a reminder. People listened. Donations came in. Celebrities joined. More importantly, ordinary people stepped up. Coffee shop owners left meals on tabs for hungry strangers. Diners began offering kindness meals, a plate prepaid, by someone who'd been helped once themselves. Even her old diner reopened its doors under new management, now proudly displaying a sign that read, "We treat every soul with dignity, because you never know who's walking through the door." Lisa visited it only once. Not for a speech, just to slip into a booth near the window and leave a $100 tip under a napkin that read, "Pay it forward." Keanu stayed in touch, but quietly. He didn't want to overshadow the story anymore. He said his piece and then let her shine. Sometimes they talked about life, sometimes about nothing at all. She had thanked him 1,000 times. He always smiled and said, "You did this yourself. I just turned on a light." One evening, Lisa was invited to speak at a community theater. Not a grand venue, just a small town gathering in folding chairs. She wore a simple sweater and stood in front of people who reminded her of herself. No stage, just eye to eye. She told her story, of a rainy morning, of toast and coffee, of a stranger with tired eyes. But she also told them what she learned. "You don't have to be perfect," she said. "You just have to care when it matters." Afterward, an old man approached her. He said nothing at first, just pressed something into her hand. A small tattered paper napkin. She looked at him, confused. He smiled. "You gave this to my daughter years ago. She kept it. Said it reminded her that she was worth something, even when the world said otherwise." Lisa unfolded the napkin. On it, faded but still visible, were her words from long ago. "You matter. Even when no one says it, you still matter." She clutched it to her chest. Her voice failed her, but her heart did not, and so her journey ended. The way it began, not with fame or fortune, but with a quiet act of kindness shared in a moment no one else would ever see. Lisa learned that the true stage was never the spotlight. It was the silent moments, the unrecorded ones, where humanity met humanity without judgment. What began with a cup of coffee and a torn coat became something bigger than any viral video. It became a reminder that respect, humility, resilience, and kindness can change a life. Sometimes your own, sometimes the world's.